Yo, we are so back at him. We are so back. Michael Saylor is going to buy all of our bags because he's building on quote unquote ordinals.
Is using the segregated witness building on ordinals? I guess that's the technical question that I saw. I don't know, Bugsy and a bunch of others battling with Udi on on Twitter, trying to figure out if it was technically ordinals or, it's like, pump my bags, I guess is what the theme of the day, man. Pump my bags.
Question is, does it even matter if he's using ordinals or not?
That's right.
He's spamming the chain.
The reality is, it doesn't matter. He's spamming the chain. He's spamming the chain. I mean, the responses, I don't know if you saw many, but the responses from Laser Eyes has been so fun to watch, man. It's just like,
yeah, Luke commented on a few of them.
Yep.
I saw a few comments. Of course, it's just the same, that he's very spiteful. There was actually it seemed like a lot of confusion. I was looking in a handful of the replies for different from different maxis and stuff, and a lot of the replies there was Laser Eyes just saying, "Explain this to me. What does this even mean?" So they're just like so inconsequential to all of it. It's quite wild to see how you can be so aggressive towards people in your community but have no fundamental understanding of what is even happening at all. It's quite wild to see. Actually, when they announced the MicroStrategy, I watched the video. I got through some of the docs. First thing I thought of was, I actually want to hear Chris's opinion on this, as Michael Saylor's been now doing this Bitcoin for corporations thing since 2020. And now he's moving into actually building on Bitcoin 4 years later, not just a holdings company of a ton of Bitcoin. Chris, what are your thoughts on Michael Saylor actually building on Bitcoin? Is it bullish for the degens? And also, is it bullish for the corporations? Will it onboard additional liquidity?
Yo, good morning, guys. Man, Michael Saylor loves Bitcoin more than anyone else on the planet. I think that's pretty much a foregone conclusion. He did start a Bitcoin development company like a year or two ago, and I think that it was always obvious that this was kind of the route that it would go. And I'm not surprised to see it go into decentralized identity. If you look back into his history, he was an OG domain squatter. He's been into, basically ENS for Web2 forever. And so just to kind of translate that over to digital identity was a pretty obvious kind of segue for him to move into. And I think it's just super bullish. I think, when I think of something like MicroStrategy stock, a lot of the times when I explain it, we think that Michael Saylor will probably be the richest man in the world at some point going forward. And you're getting exposure to his company that owns, the highest allocation of the scarcest asset in the world. And what does that mean when for that company, when the price is 5, 10, 20 times higher? What does he decide to build then? So just getting exposure to him and his company and basically the vision that he sees going forward, that's always been a call option for MicroStrategy. And I think that I think it's super bullish for Bitcoin. I think me and Jake were talking at NFC NYC. It's the only industry that we're always early. You could never be late in this industry. You're always early. And so once again, it's just really the very beginning of Bitcoin for corporates, and just really kind of high level development going on chain.
Yeah, Adam, we talk about this a lot, right? Are you early? And sometimes you're too early. And that's the case for a lot of people. No matter where you are, right? If you're a Sailor stan, you could be, he's early to the corporations, or for Bitcoin for corporations and for Bitcoin products. So, he's on the frontier. For us, though, that are all the degens, I saw a lot of comments saying, yeah, this was researched 10 years ago. I saw somebody quoting DID experiments from 2014.
Yep.
But that was probably too early, right? There was no, this whole industry, you have to have a whole marketing initiative behind it. You got to play the attention economy just as much as the technology. I mean, I put a post out this morning about, and maybe we'll talk about this next, about rune dexes and AMMs. I've been getting a few people hitting me up about it. And I found there's actually one deck that exists and no one uses it because they just don't have the attention, right?
Nobody knows, right? I mean,
nobody knows.
Like you showed yesterday, it was like, I've never seen that website before, right? It's like,
yeah.
And if nobody's there's no liquidity, so nobody uses it, right? It's just like, it's a death spiral.
It's completely a death spiral. So, Adam, what's your early take on the DID system from Sailor? And then we're gonna get Dogfather's opinion right afterwards.
Sure. I did post up top. I made a little bit of a longer post this morning about it, just to give some context to people who literally don't even know, that named identities and stuff have been around for literally a decade in crypto. And it's my theory, and I've talked about it before here, is that my theory is that it's somewhat solved. Basically, ENS, .eth names, and profile pictures are the way we kind of ID ourselves. Now, does that fit into Sailor's thing about like how to verify emails? Like, dude, that stuff's been solved for like even longer. Like, it's crazy that we're revisiting this, but obviously he's got to come up with something, or wants to come up with something to be building on Bitcoin. And so for him and marketing, it's probably great for his company. The not great. The laser eyes obviously hate it. That response was swift. The ordinals guys, all of us, we love it because he's talking about building on Bitcoin, which we've been talking about. And it kind of recycles through this old idea that's kind of already been done. And so it's really nice from our perspective, whether or not, like, look, if he can build Bitcoin Orange to be some like globally recognized standard, okay, then it's a different ballgame. But we all know that that's, on the verge of near impossible. But who knows, man? I just think it's really, really good in general for all of crypto, because this is gonna be on CNBC this morning. I have zero question, right? So this is good for all of us in reality.
Yep. MicroStrategy Orange is the official name of the project. Dogfather, what's your take on this, man? As our in-house research analytics expert, do you have any input on this?
Yeah, GM. Yeah, not specifically, but I mean, we all know it's not enough to be the first, right? I mean, you can be the first with some idea, and it's like a project of two people.
Yeah.
And you can be like a superstar like Sailor with some company behind and maybe 100 devs, and then you make it, right? So again, it's like the counterparty people saying, hey.
Uh-oh, did we lose him?
Did he rug? He rugged for me.
Yep,
Chris,
we lost him.
Uh-oh, dog.
Yeah, we lost him.
Yeah, Dogfather, if you can hear me, just drop down and come back, and I'll take this for a second. So, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
For Sailor, I mean, he's one of the best creative financiers I've ever seen. He is a genius on a ton of different levels that is so uncommon throughout the world today. And he deals with super specific problems like deepfake videos on the daily that most of us don't even have to worry about at all. And so from his lens, I think that he's going to tackle this into a much wider range of just decentralized identity products that we probably haven't spent a ton of time thinking about that he has to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I have it here pulled up from the presentation. MicroStrategy Orange, it says enterprise-grade platform for implementing Bitcoin-based decentralized digital identifiers across your organization. And there's 3 key components to MicroStrategy Orange, which is the overall project: Orange Service, Orange SDK, and Orange Apps. Adam, it sounds exactly like Emblem Markets, doesn't it? It's exactly Emblem Vault, right? We have
Bro,
Emblem.
he's literally that slide. I've seen that slide before, bro. You
Sure, we
made
had
that slide.
Yeah, in our last presentation. I think he ripped this off of Canva, honestly.
So funny, man. So funny.
So I'm starting to see a trend in a lot of these projects that are doing the same thing, right? You're like, okay, if I'm going to have to build out this service, I got to build out an SDK so people can use it. Then I have to build an app store. So if people use the SDK, there's a place for it to exist. And at the very beginning, you have the service because you're like, okay, I need to lead the herd, to the grassland. I need to show them what can be done here. And this is what I think is happening is, he's getting shit for this DID system. I was, shit posting yesterday saying I'm going to do Jake colon BTC to show him a Bitcoin KOL. And it's really, to me, if I could explain it quickly what exactly it is, there's 2 components to it. One is email verification, and another one is a nice orange check mark like you see on Twitter. So his whole thesis here is that he's fighting email spam, email phishing, email fraud. And again, think about this is from corporations. So there obviously must be something from the corporate level that's happening where these big entities are getting scammed internally, right, from some capacity. So here you use MicroStrategy Orange's DID system, and I don't know specifically the technicals, but it's like they use your wallet to sign the email, which is pushed to which verifies that your wallet has been verified through their DID system using this ordinal like kind of system. It's not building on ordinals, at least from what I've read. It's close. They're using op return and the discount, the segregated witness. To me, it seems a little bit more similar to runes, and it seems similar to ordinals in terms of the technicals, because runes uses both of those as well, whereas ordinals only uses one of those. But I mean, at the end of the day, right, I don't think it really matters. It's definitely inspired by ordinals, whether it's built on ordinals or inspired by. I think it still gets the point across. Will it be successful? I don't know. They're speaking to a completely different audience than us. They also have to showcase to their stockholders that they're actually building to become a Bitcoin, or they're a business intelligence service, and then they're just backing it by Bitcoin. I mean, it makes sense that that's the logical next step for where they're going.
Yeah, I think on an email level, I mean, again, this has kind of been solved for a while. This is like, it feels like, hey, a lot of good businesses are simply repackaging old ideas in somewhat new ways. And this is a new way in that he's tying it to Bitcoin. But the reality is me being able to verify that your email, that I get an email from Jake and it's the actual Jake, that's been around for a while. Obviously, there's tons of this phishing and other stuff that gets faked all the time. And we're in crypto, right? How many fake emails have you received from, OpenSea or Coinbase or whatever, right? So you see some need for it, but the integration and convincing people to use it, and this becomes the dominant system. I mean, it's just, it's a heavy lift. Not to say he can't do it. He's probably as well positioned as anybody to do it, other than like Microsoft. So we'll see. I just to be honest, I think this is just a simple like marketing game. I think this is just an eyeball grabber. I think this is a big, at the end, I think in a year or two we'll look back and be like, wow, this is a huge nothing burger.
Yeah, there's a caveat at the very end of the presentation. I think it's the CTO who gave the presentation, or maybe COO. he said that this is their product is just one of basically the app store of decentralized identity identifiers that are going to be built. So this is just the first, what they're hoping to be, you know, a 3-pointer or a game-winning shot to get all these corporations to build with their SDK. I mean, it's possible, right? At the end of the day, these corporations need it to be served up to them on a platter. Pretty simple for them to engage and build with it. So I think on a longer term horizon is what they're looking at. They're probably looking at the 10 to 20-year plan. Whereas as we know, everyone in the crypto space is on the 5-second attention span plan, right? If it's not something they could do now, and this is obviously non-speculatory as well, which most people in the crypto and retail space, that's all you want is speculation.
Yep.
It's just it's two different buckets, but and on a much longer time horizon. And we're gonna go back to Dogfather, and then we'll go to Rooney's.
Yeah, just to throw in one piece. I mean, everyone knows that, but I think it's worth highlighting. I mean, tell me a tech company that has a higher stake, you know, and higher incentives than MicroStrategy. I mean, they really want to do something, and they will profit massively from that. Jake, like you were saying, Michael Saylor probably in 10 years the richest man of the world. Same with, you know, the company in general. If they do well, if they contribute just 1 or 2% to the BTC ecosystem by building something, and they can pivot all the time, right? This will be really, I mean, worth every attempt, even though it may not make too much sense at the beginning what they're saying. But if they do something that is, you know, a use case and a new use case for Bitcoin, I'm all in, man.
I agree. What's up, Rooney's?
Hey guys, it's Dr. Pop again. I hope you guys are doing all right. You can't trust those rocket scientists. I'm just trying to warn you because one guy told me he was a rocket scientist, and then I woke up without a kidney when he asked to look at my SDK. I woke up without a kidney, and he also took a sock full of quarters. That was mine. But you got to be careful out there. And watch yourself when somebody claims to be a rocket scientist. I don't know about this Michael Saylor guy. He seems all right, but just don't throw your full trust into him, okay?
Well, it's an interesting point there, which is like, okay, well, these are decentralized, in theory, they're claiming decentralized identities, but are they really decentralized when you basically have a gatekeeper of MicroStrategy controlling the creation and distribution of these identities? So I don't know if I'd call them fully decentralized identities.
Don't trust them. Now, hey guys, I'm about to be detained, and I used my phone call to talk to you guys, so I gotta go. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Goodbye.
See you, Rooney's. Be safe out there. Hooked on them. So here's the sign and verify workflow I have here on the live stream. There's 2 components to it: a sign, and then the other sign says verify. So on the sign portion of it, you have compose email, and then a hash, and then the hash email content, and then you sign the email with the sender's private key. Email is sent with DID and signature and email header. So it looks like they're putting a hash of the email on Bitcoin. And then to verify, it says you receive the email, and then you retrieve the sender's DID and signature from the email header. And then you use the DID to locate the sender's public key in the blockchain, and then a verify signature using the public key and email content. Yeah, so they're putting a hash of everyone's email and signature on the Bitcoin blockchain, and I guess that's how they're using Bitcoin to verify that it is in fact you. So I think there's more to this. There's going to be much larger, maybe a nothing burger to us, but I don't know what the stock price is, but I'm sure it had an impact on that as well. So exciting times, man. Moving on to some of the other Inscription ecosystems. On Tuesday, we had a Doginal. Remember, we had a Doginal space, which was pretty fun, pretty exciting. We spent a lot of time talking about the Leica project, which is the Dogecoin Layer 2. They did not even reach 50% of their public ICO. They call it a pre-seed, but essentially it's the same thing. They did do a private one, and they weren't attempting to raise a lot. It looks like they've raised about 250K out of the 400K that they wanted. Lack of interest, lack of marketing and success. There's been a ton of engagement on it, but it did not sell out. I definitely thought that it would. Bullish or bearish for the Dogecoins ecosystem, Adam?
I think at the end of the day, it's kind of what we talked about, which is like, look, people spent a lot of money inscribing stuff, right? Rune, we just had runes and stuff launch and stuff. So people, people only have so much, free floating money. And when you're spending it here, there, and everywhere, if a company like this doesn't get their timing right, it becomes nothing, unfortunately for these guys. And I think even raising a couple $100,000 is actually pretty good in my view. Just because, it's a really hard environment that combined, really terrible timing for them. If they'd done it a month ago, this probably would have had no problem, right? So much is timing of the market. It's really tough to nail that right, because you have to have your tech usually kind of go off at the same time, which is really hard. And honestly, that they were able even to raise a couple $100,000 is somewhat surprising to me. No, who knows how much of that is legit or just the team kind of giving it to themselves to try and, make it seem like there's actual interest, oftentimes that'll be the full amount. So yeah, it's a bummer in that, like, is this going to get fully built out now? Have they put out a tweet saying what they're going to do?
So it closes, I think, in like 12 hours. Okay. So they put a post out, said that there was a 24-hour countdown. And then, I don't know, I guess we'll see. I'm starting to learn this as well, just through the Emblem side and talking to people, and now being on the business side of market activity. You want to do to time these sales between, there's so many distribution mechanisms. You have like private sales, public sales, pre-sales, public pre-sales, TGEs, right? They're just like, it's an infinite amount of ways people are trying to figure out how to do this.
Yep.
When the market is down, this is when you opt to do a private sale, because the public liquidity is not there. So this is when you generally go to, large investors, VCs or large individual, angels, to raise that round so that you don't have to, look like this. Because this is not selling out on a public ICO is like the worst thing possible to happen. It shows that there's not interest. It shows that the team lacks accountability to successfully fill. Yep. And this is why you generally see ICOs when the market is frothy and hot, is because money is just kind of sloshing around here. So I do 100% agree with you, Adam. If they did this probably a month ago or maybe a month and a half ago, this probably would have sold out instantly. But they had multiple delays during the build for this, because this was supposed to launch like weeks ago. So, to their own, I guess, delay, they should have probably held this off for a few months until the market activity to Dogecoins came back. Because right now, Dogecoins is literally at the bottom or close to the bottom. Doji is down, 80 something percent. It's recently fallen into the 20 millions market cap. It was up to 110 at one point. So they
higher at 1 million market cap.
I have to say though, I did buy. I did buy some of the Leica pre-sale. I think I put like I don't know, 8,000 Doge into it or something like that. So like a G. I still have a lot of belief in it. Although still questionable. Wolfie Swap, WIW, and this team could all be the same team. I don't know for sure. High risk, high reward, I guess. But true. I mean, if you look at anything from Merlin's success, although they're having some issues, maybe we'll cover that now. And looking at, stacks and some of these other and the ETH L2s, right? This seems like obviously the next kind of step. If you have Blast that's popping off and going crazy on ETH, you had Merlin that did really well. This to me seems like a no-brainer if you just follow the narratives.
Well, I mean, if I were advising them, I'd tell them, like, look, whatever you sold out, say they do a 50% sellout, you reward those people who put in for the 50%. Like you do that whole 100% distribution, you're just distributing it all to the people who bought in, right? So trying to reward those early kind of supporters and backers would be the strategy I would try to use. And hopefully they become your biggest, broadcasters and biggest marketers for you. And you got to grind this out. I mean, what we see in the space so often is people just fade away and they just be like, they just run away with that couple $100,000, hopefully that doesn't happen here.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the guy who created Dipe, which was like the pipe on it on Dogecoin, that guy raised like, I don't know, 500K or something and just never put out.
It's crazy.
Never put out marketplace and post
it's
about.
Literally so foreign to me. Like I just can't even imagine being that type of person. It boggles my mind, man. But I guess when you're anonymous or whatever, you can do that with a clean conscience, I guess.
What's crazy, this guy Ethan is like a full facing public person, and he just posts about like buying pups and Wizard and stuff. Meanwhile, I think he made like 1 Doge or 2 Doge per Dipe mint, and it was it was up to like 500,000 mints or something.
Oh my
God. He made like 500,000 Doge or 600,000 Doge or something crazy like that. Just 6 months later, nothing ever happened.
I mean, you got to be like guys like that. Do I think anything's really going to happen to them? Typically not. But once in a while, you will get. There was a guy during the 21s who was building like an NFT swap marketplace. I can't remember, but it was just, and it was literally, when I say guy, it was like a 20-year-old, dude, and he raised like 500 grand, something. Are you
talking about NFT Machine?
Yeah, that was the dude. Yeah, and he raised a bunch of ETH. People literally just sent ETH to the wallet. It
was like 600K, I think.
Yeah, and but eventually, like Colorado or wherever he lives, like enough people complained and bitched to the police. He like got arrested. Like it went down for him, and I think he got convicted of like fraud and stuff. So, not that really dissuades most people, but to steal from people is still wrong, even if you're in crypto. I mean, it's fucked up. I don't know.
Yeah, you file a civil. So he got a civil case. I think he ended up, even though he raised, I think it was like 500K. I think the fine was only like around 400K or something. But then he also had to pay lawyer fees, and it was a civil case, so he didn't get criminally charged, but he does owe it. And I don't know if that ever happened. I know he's still around somewhere doing kind of similar things. So
chilling his mooncat bag.
that guy aped. He literally took the money and just bought hundreds of thousands of dollars in mooncats.
That's literally it. And for anybody who doesn't know, I mean, Jake, you probably have more info than I do, but yeah, he literally, of that 500K, he bought like all mooncats. Thinking he could like triple his money. He didn't realize that mooncats don't move, man. And so he got wrecked.
Stone cats, stable cats. What's up, Snipes?
GM and Gmingo. What's up, Jake, Adam, and Emblem Vault, and everyone else? Since you're going over news stuff, I thought it was worth mentioning that Ordex and Facet have teamed up, and
that's a good one.
Ordex is going to start indexing Facet stuff, and I think that's pretty cool. I can pin up the announcement of that. Cool. And also, my project, Nakamingos, just did the largest art drop on Inscriptions, as like something like 3,500 pieces to all of our holders.
Wow. So first, give us a little bit of a recap of what's happening in the Inscription ecosystem as Nakamigos. Is it Nakamigos you said?
Nakamingos.
Oh, Nakamingos. I remember I've seen your project around for a while. Give us, since you're in it, give us an update from your perspective of what's going on in Inscriptions.
What's going on with Inscriptions? I mean, we're still here, we're still vibing. We're in a lull, I think. Runes, I think, took the stage for the Inscription meta, and everybody kind of moved their money over there. So yeah, I don't know, I'm still bullish in the long run. I mean, it's Inscriptions on Ethereum. It's inexpensive, it's fast, and yeah, there's like some really cool art over there, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Ordex and Facet build together.
Here, so for the partnership announcement, it says, this is from Ordex's account. We're happy to announce we have now officially partnered with the team at OX Facet. It says a new partnership is aimed to push the adoption of Facet and Inscriptions by focusing both teams in our areas of specialty. Ordex will now become the premium marketplace for both Facet and Inscription assets, allowing Tom and Michael to focus on the Facet protocols, capabilities, and advancements. There's a lot to look forward to. Nothing changes in our support for Inscription's trading and collection launchpads. We'll also be offering these services for Facet-based collections and tokens very soon. Wow, that's pretty bullish. Ordex has been around for a while. They initially started as a Inscriptions marketplace and then got competed out and moved over to emerging ecosystems. And I think they're really one of the first to scene for Inscriptions.
Well, yeah, they started with ordinals, and I think there was just too much competition, and then they saw, Inscriptions popping off and just did a 180 and started supporting Inscriptions, and they've been, great. They've been the premier marketplace for the Inscriptions ecosystem. Like, nobody messes with Etch-a-Market anymore, and unfortunately Inscriptions.com hasn't gotten much updates because Middlemarch and Michael have been, focusing on Facet. But I think that they're going to be developing that out more as a sort of, well, this is what they've said, sort of a like ether scan for Inscriptions is what Inscriptions.com will become, more than a marketplace.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, for Inscriptions, it's such a small market. You probably only really need one marketplace for now. Competing against Ordex for any team would be non-trivial. The next thing you would think would happen is once Inscriptions grows, you'll probably have something like a Magic Eden or some other larger marketplace come in and add support for all Inscriptions once it moves past the boutique phase.
Yeah, I think that, like, if a major marketplace picks it up, it's going to be Magic Eden, and it just seems appropriate over there.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't been following it too much. This is kind of the interesting piece that we've learned in all. I think this is across all of the ordinal ecosystems, because there's no smart contracts or anything, right? It's very open-ended. There's no standardization. So a lot of these founders of these protocols have to literally come in and build the product too, right? Which takes away from, being creative or allowing other users to come in and kind of build this organic ecosystem, right? It's a little bit more manufactured, which isn't, I wouldn't say bad per se, but it definitely takes the founder's attention away from expanding the protocol, to outside people, because they still have to build it internally. I know Adam's been, Adam, I know you're close with Tom and talk about it. What are your takes on this, I guess, strong partnership, and then any updates in Inscriptions?
Well, I think that marketplace is really nice. Like, I've used it. It's smooth. And so it's a reasonable partner. It makes sense. The issue, I think, with Inscriptions and Facet to a degree as well, although it's very different, but the Inscription kind of community, in the same way with the Doginals community, I think it's just burnout, man. It's like you had this like flux of literally dozens or hundreds of projects and drops and art and punks and apes, and like the literally just mint, and everybody basically spent all their money. And even though it was 50 cents on Inscriptions or 5 cents on Doge, still, like, the money eventually does run out, and people just get burned out because there are no secondary buyers. So at the beginning, you're kind of minting and you're selling to willing buyers. There's this hype phase. And I think our entire space has just gotten burned out. And in a way is just looking for like the next big thing. And these protocols and these systems are now here. But I think we're all kind of looking for something new, because we're just burnt out about minting the next Inscription drop, and it's just not happening. I mean, I'm in the chats with guys, and it's dead, right? In the same way that Doge is dead and Litecoin, and there's just the money spent. You know what I mean? And there needs to be, I think, some innovation or renewed excitement, and that's usually something new. Something new takes hold, and I actually think Facet's in an interesting spot to take advantage of something like that. But that might be a different conversation.
I mean, you look at these numbers on Ordex. It is not good.
Yeah.
At the 1 month volume.
Wait, don't say that too loud, guys. Come on.
Bro, it's not just you guys. It's literally the entire industry, man. Yeah.
You look at you look at the top collection is Itty Bitties, and their 1 month volume is $9,000, right? And so, and the second place is Ethereum Punks has a $7,000 volume in 30 days. Again, this is the same issue. We talk about this issue ad nauseum. Is the low transaction fees is a major friction to keep a stable floor, because people just continually dump on each other for $3 because it's so cheap to do it. Whereas on like Ethereum and Bitcoin, right, it becomes more of a whales game, but that $10 to $50 transaction fee adds a buffer, because now you're setting kind of like an artificial floor price, whereas here it's not really the case. You could just happily come in and buy 300 of whatever is being minted and flip it for $400 pretty quickly. It's so hopefully people kind of figure out the way. I guess the only way to really solve this is to literally mint something at a high price. But the only way to do that, right? So if you mint something at $1,000 or $2,000, you need to have really credible backing to do that. Like on Ordinals, you look at all the collections that minted at a high price, at least the ones that are stable. Quantum Cats minted at 0.09 ETH, which was like, I don't know, I think it was like $5,000 at the time. You had OMB minted at 0.09 Bitcoin, which is the same thing. Those are both the top collections. Node Monkeys was $0.03,000, right? Pizza Ninjas was $0.03,000, and On-Chain Monkeys, I think, was like what, 0.1 or something like that.
Yep.
So that's the way around it. But you look at all those teams; they all have very, very credible founders. Even at the time, like ZK had 40,000 followers, 50,000 followers when he started. Udi's always been popular, or at least recently. So maybe these ecosystems just needs one of those players to come in and really believe in the ecosystem. And that really comes down to the culture and the networking relations. So yeah, we'll see what happens there, dude. I don't know.
I still do believe like Facet though has a really interesting opportunity. And we've talked about it a lot, just to do something even similar to what Merlin, maybe we talk about Merlin next, has done, where you can, stake your assets on Facet or something to that effect, would be really interesting, right? But what's up with Merlin?
Dude, Merlin, kind of in an interesting situation. I mean, to their credit, I do give Jeff credit. He has been around. He's definitely been posting every day. They missed their original unstaking timeline by 7 days, which I think is incredible to do for something this large. They haven't had any security exploits. There's been a few issues in terms of the airdrops, right? Like I said, I missed out on the Prometheans airdrop because it was in a staking contract. I also missed out on two Genie data airdrops because I had my OG Pass staked, which was ETH worth like 0.01. So, I missed out on like 0.1 Bitcoin having it staked. So you hope that it, pays itself forward. When they did drop the Merle token, they were on time with that. The one thing they did not tell you, which should have expected, is that there's a 6-month vesting schedule where you get 50% the first month, then you get 25%, and then you get like 12.5%, and then it goes down and down for 6 months, right? That tail is not something they had told us about, but if you just look at all of the ecosystem on Merlin, it's all the same, right? Everything's like that. The issue with a lot of the community is that there's a 7-day bridging period to unstake and bring your NFTs back. Although we know this, that is very common in the bridge space. That's you go to the Coinbase or the base bridge that's done by Coinbase is 7 days. It's always been around 7 days. Some of it's been 2 weeks. When you get into some of these like optimistic, I think it's the optimistic bridges. So I unstaked so I had a Quantum Cat, no G Pass, and a Runestone staked. I got my Runestone immediately. It came in, I hit unstake, it was fast. And I haven't got the OG Pass or the Quantum Cat yet. It's been about 3 days to see. My question with Merlin is what's next for them, right?
Do you have any idea like how much you in theory earned while those were staked?
Yeah, so there's a value. So I ended up earning, so I staked, it was about 1 Bitcoin in value. It would fluctuate between like 0.8 to like 1.2 because it was all NFT based. I ended up earning 7,000. Was it 7,000? Yeah, it was like 7,500 tokens or something like that. Right now, the price of Merle is like 80 cents, something like that. It started out at about $2. So you're like, oh yeah, 14K airdrop, right? That pays itself. At a massive dump immediately. Of course, this is like literally, if you look at every single token on Merlin chain, it's all just initial pump and then just straight down through the floor. Like Hoo Cat, which was their meme coin.
Yeah.
It's down to like $4 million. It was up to like 35 at one point. Yeah. I do think the ecosystem will come back, but my question is like, what's next for them, right? They had the initial hype for the staking program, which, got about $3 billion in value. They have now a swap tool that's launched. They have an ICO tool. They've got like, maybe 10 or so apps that exist on the platform. They've now initiated the unstaking for all assets. It's like, what's the next stage? Are they going to now build out what their initial vision or claim is to build an ecosystem for Bitmap? Because Bitmap is also down horrendous. It is down like 90%. It got up to 0.008 Bitcoin. I think now it's down to like 0.001 or something like that. Something close. So it's down like 90%.
Is anybody even buying? That's even like the thing.
There's no like the builders for Bitmap have kind of been fractured. A handful of the Bitmap community went over to the DMT community, which is kind of like tangentially related. Which I actually think they actually think the DMT market I'll go into in a second, I think is actually ripe to have a comeback. But I don't know, man. Like the question is now, what's the focus here? We've seen so many different L2s, and obviously, if you look at Ethereum L2s, eventually there's a specialization. Stacks is by far this like general purpose. L2, I think same with Rootstock is kind of the same. Those are the two OGs. And now you have, Merlin, which said that they're going to focus on gaming. You have Bob, which is, I guess, a little bit more of a professional bridge. I don't think they've really built an identity yet, to be honest. You have BVM, which is I guess, like a Bitcoin layer 2 factory is what they call it. It helps you launch Bitcoin L2s. And you have Naka Chain that hasn't really done anything either. There's no identity. So the question is like, what's here? I don't know, Adam, what do you think? I know you're not a big Merlin fan, but do they stick with, focusing on giving Bitmap utility and building these games, or do they focus on something else?
It's kind of the challenge just talked about with like Inscriptions and Facet, which is, and I think all of these L2s, if your whole value prop is bring your shit over here, it's cheaper, faster. That is not enough value prop for most people to move assets. You got to bring something that is interesting in a way like you did for staking. Okay, staking, we don't know what's going to happen. So it's potentially, I might get $10,000 in rewards. I'm going to go do it because my assets aren't going to earn anything sitting over here in Bitcoin. The only problem with that was that you actually missed out on airdrops. So there actually was a cost of doing that, right? But for bitmap and stuff, there's no cost. Any rewards are better than zero, right? So for me, and it's really, really hard. You almost need to get with teams or encourage teams who will build something interesting on your L2 or whatever to get people over. And so like we're seeing it with, I don't know, Blast or, Blast Points, or I don't know, the card game that came out. I think you got some of those cards, the influencer card game that's going on right now. Like what's going to get people to move over? And we've seen it again and again. It's money or the promise of something that may give, generational wealth, right? So you have to create these things. It's not like they don't just pop up. You have to either have teams or people who are building them, or encourage people who will do that. And boy, it's I wouldn't want to be in that business because it's really, really hard to do, period.
Yeah, that it exactly is. But moving over from Merlin, I think they're going to lean into bitmap. That's what I would do. I mean, the initial hype is gone, right? Some of the liquidity is exiting. Now it's time to really double down and specialize and hyper focus on what makes you special. You have the liquidity that's there. You have, price history, activity. I would continue to lean into bitmap, but you never know, man. When teams start to make money and generate revenue, they tend to start focusing a little bit more on just capital accrual rather than, utility. And they're obviously backed by a ton of VCs. So they're a little bit in a fork in the road at the moment. So we'll see what kind of happens there. But the other bitmap community, I don't know if you were following this, digital matter theory, which was created by the block runner guys. I've been kind of following them recently because they've had some recent developments, and I'm going to try to explain this the best I can, but it's a little bit above my head at times. So they've created essentially some new like minting. I don't even know how to describe this. They've created some sort of new distribution mechanism or minting mechanic for their DMT ecosystem, which is a little bit more gamified in a sense. I have it here pulled up on my screen. There's something called DMT redacted test, and this is their gamified mint. So it would be similar to like First is one of those Bitcoin or ordinal native kind of mint styles. And then you had DMT as another one, right? Because you're minting based off of the data that sits within a block. So here they created some sort of gamified thing with DMT to where there's a block here or there's a map that has all of the different blocks. And I think it's like every day you can mint one of these blocks. And I think this is where the orange ones, it says is available. And then the gray says unavailable. And I think it's like once per day or once per time, whatever the time parameter is, you could click on one of these blocks and try to mint them and see how much of this like DMT token is in that block. So it creates a little bit more of a fair distribution mechanism, right? Because you don't have a whale coming in and just minting everything. This was one of the issues with bitmap. Was as long as you were the first to the map, you could literally just sit there and inscribe all of it. This is how some people got like, 100,000 bitmap or was it not 100,000, like 50,000, I think was the most or something of that nature. So they're trying to create something a little bit more organic and native. And they did do a test run. And I thought this was kind of bullish. During their test run, they had 1,100 people playing this actively, which shows to me that there's a pretty strong community that's hanging out over there. And I think this is an ecosystem that's probably getting ready to come back online, because Tap also has Tap and Track have also put out a ton of developments as well, and I'll go over that to here in a second. I don't know, Adam, have you followed any of this at all? DMT, or digital matter theory, and the block runner guys?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's I don't know what we called it, GambleFi, right? The idea of, I mean, I know a lot of people like it, DMT. For me, it's like, okay, you've basically just created a way of minting that's tied to something else. But you could literally tie it to anything. I mean, yeah, it's tied to the blockchain, but the numbers are tied to the blockchain. But for me, it's like, okay, well, they're just finding new mint mechanics for new ways to mint. And it gets back to this idea of where people are just, they're burnt out on this minting because, and if you're going to do another mint, bro, there better be some people there at the other side of that mint that are going to buy those things. And it just doesn't seem likely to me because everybody's aware of the game right now. So, you know, everybody has the opportunity to mint. Like, it's just, who are the buyers on the other side? If this isn't some sort of game or something that in the long term, like I want to play, or, you know, in theory, it's a metaverse or something. That was always my problem with Bitmap. It's like, there's no the metaverse. We've run this thing back, you know? So I don't know. I'm bearish on this. To
the next day.
Frank.
Oops, sorry. So I have it here pulled up on the live stream. I found their test video. There was 1,158 active users just on the test. This is what makes me actually pretty bullish on it. In a time where everyone's focusing on runes, you have 1,100 people trying to play this new mint game.
It's and pretty cool video, gotta say. If you guys are watching the live stream, it's pretty cool looking.
All of these names are real people who are trying to mint. And again, I think I'm getting some of this wrong. I'm still trying to comprehend all of it. But essentially, it's like whatever time frame that they set, everybody who's live on this game board can mint one of them. And that's where you see these, like, see the purple is pending and the blue is reserved and the orange ones are available. And it's right there in the right-hand side. It says limit per wallet is 0.1. And then up at the top, you saw it said, see where it says time left in the top right. So I think it's like you get one mint every whatever the time is set to go into this. So I think it's pretty cool. The ordinal community is trying to explore various ways of mint mechanics that's, you know, free and fair, I guess, is like the whole idea, right? This is what Leonidas is pushing. This is what first is first is. This is what this kind of thing is.
Yep.
And it just makes me excited that there's more Bitcoin native kind of mint mechanics, Bitcoin native products, Bitcoin native kind of the culture, right? Because the last thing you want is to just see more copy pasta from other chains, because that just becomes more of an extractive ecosystem where something like this is more of a value creation.
Yeah. I mean, look, who knows where this is going to get used kind of in the future, right? I personally believe we're actually just playing around with this stuff for something larger that comes, you know, years down the road, which maybe we can't see right now. I mean, imagine a new blockchain launches and we need a fair way to launch that blockchain. Like, we've run through 20 different ways to launch a blockchain, right? None of them are quite fair enough for anybody. People get mad about them, right? But Bitcoin's playing around with this first is first, fair. You know, there are a lot of these interesting mechanisms, which, like, right now, this doesn't necessarily make sense for me from like an investment standpoint, but from like a games and game theory and the way this stuff works, who knows? It could be important, like, long-term for blockchains and crypto in general. We're just playing it as GameFi right now, but it could be an important mechanism that's used in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And the team that powers this DMT theory is Tap and Track. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So Track was a very popular meta protocol, right? By Benny. They run Tap and they run Pipe, and then they have Track. It seems like they've made a lot of strides recently. So this post here was from about a week ago. They've expanded their team. I think they raised, what was it, like $3 or $4 million earlier in the year or last year. They now have 3 full stack developers, 2 blockchain developers, 2 project managers, 4 marketing team members, and 2 legal teams. And they recently came out and released some new specs to their like decentralized Track core ecosystem. Let me see if I could try to find this. Here, where is this? I know it's up here. Oh, here, the dev core. This was something that they'd been working on for a long time. So the TTP ecosystems bullish for teams building on Tap. Seasoned teams on EVM chains you can now build with EVM on Track, I suppose. And they're now recently doing some different types of snapshots. And I won't bore you with a lot of the kind of mumbo jumbo of what's going on in here, but essentially they're building some sort of like distributed and decentralized indexer for all Bitcoin ordinals or Bitcoin focused protocols. So the centralized version of what they've been operating on to this point is, in order to get an indexer running, we'll use like DMT, for example. They have to literally go to Benny and have multiple conversations of like what specifically they need. And it's a very centralized kind of thing, right? They go to Benny, they have these discussions. Benny builds it in a way to where it specifies their needs. And Benny's whole vision is to build a decentralized version of that, where you don't have to go to Benny. You just basically use their SDK and you plug in XYZ kind of components. And then you have an indexer for your protocol. It's honestly pretty similar to kind of how we're trying to build Emblem, is a way of like, eventually you just deploy your own smart contracts and set up XYZ parameters. And I think a lot of protocols and companies want to go this way. Like, I think Manifold is a pretty good example of this, to where if you want to deploy a smart contract on Manifold, it's kind of like an a la carte. You could go in and click on what parameters you want for your smart contract, and right, you could add some customization. And Track is building something similar, but just for indexing. And they finally launched, I think, just like a portion of it is what it seems. And there was a Tap Bridge that just launched recently. I think it's actually called Tap Bridge, where you can it's the first Bitcoin intra bridge that I've seen, where you can bridge your
Bitcoin to Bitcoin.
You can bridge your runes or ordinals to the Tap protocol, because the Tap protocol is a little bit more expansive. I guess you can build like a DEX and you have additional functionality on there. So this Tap Bridge that I've seen, you can take your ordinals and go bridge them to Tap to do DEXs and things like that. I think that's kind of exciting. That directly competes with CatVM, with the Taproot Wizards, right? Because they just got OPCat approved and now it's on Signet and they're testing it out. But the whole thing of CatVM is being able to move your sats across the entire Bitcoin ecosystem, across all meta protocols. So they're going to face some stiff competition there once that actually does happen. If it does happen, there's no way. But I think intra bridges are quite interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all sats, right? And they're being indexed for the most part. And I guess CatVM also, they say you can do dark pools or light pools and all kinds of XYZ kind of DeFi functionality. Adam, what's your take on intra bridging on Bitcoin? Moving my ordinal to Tap, moving my stamp to ordinals, moving my atomical to I don't know, whatever is coming next, counterparty, etc.
Yeah, it starts. We're at that point where it starts not making sense to me, right? It starts like no. Why, right? And unless we get some whys in here, it starts. That's why I'm bullish on the majority of these protocols long term, because I don't see most of them surviving. It's just there will be a couple winners. But it's like to maintain attention and get people to even understand what the hell's going on and why they would want to do that. Like, it's really hard in any case, right? I think we hit some huge amount of frothiness in this market where, what Casey did was like perfect timing, perfect genius. And now everybody's like, it's like, wait a minute, I can make my own too. And like everybody's made their own. And it just feels, like we've passed the frothy stage and now we're in the stage of, well, what's this for? Why do I need to do this? How will this help me? Will this make me money? Is there something more interesting? What is it? And I don't feel like most of these have good answers for that, and so we'll see. It'll get shaken out over the next year or so. But that's my current vibe right now.
So here, the site, if anyone's interested, or the company, it's called Unitap, right? Oh, real original name. But it's exciting for the Tap ecosystem, because I know there was Tap, I think it was called Tap X or something, that kind of just imploded on itself. So the Tap community has been kind of stranded on an island where they just have assets and no way to trade these. So on here on their roadmap, it says Runes and BRC20 swaps to Tap protocol, Runes and BRC20 bridges to Tap, Unitap wallet, and Tap promises. This is the one thing that I've been seeing much more focus about. I've seen Benny talking about this too. So let me read this. The integration of promises into the Tap ecosystem represents a groundbreaking advancement in decentralized finance on Bitcoin. By staying native to Bitcoin ordinals and closely aligning with L1 principles, that's in quotations L1, promises unlock a new paradigm for building DeFi applications with unparalleled security and efficiency. With promises, Tap introduces a wide array of DeFi features that were previously inaccessible and inefficient to or on Bitcoin. These features include staking, lending, bonds, and more. I'm assuming Tap promises is their VM, I guess, or maybe, yeah, whatever their virtual machine that they're using, or I guess Bitcoin VM or something of that nature. It's again, it's right. It's a little bit hazy, but that is something that I've seen Benny talking about recently. So bullish. I mean, bullish news, right? I mean, some of these ecosystems are kind of like dead. I mean, you know, no disrespect to Atomicals, but I haven't really seen anything, you know, out of that area quite some time. I do think the CBRC20 guys have launched their Moto swap. Let me see if that's. Yeah.
I mean, but just let's take this as one example, right? Why would I want to move my Rune to Tap when all of the liquidity is on Magic Eden, right? So like just that like one simple example, right? We know that people will move. I mean, people would move it to fucking Ethereum if Ethereum had the liquidity for it, right? We know that's for sure. But why move it to Tap? Like, do we believe the liquidity is going to take place on Tap? You know, I find it unlikely at this point.
Yeah.
Convince me.
I would say so. So the reason is users want to stay in the Bitcoin ecosystem, right? They don't want to use Emblem Vaults. They don't want to go to Ethereum. They don't want to go to a Merlin chain because they don't like the founder. They don't want to set up a new wallet or MetaMask. They could just basically sign in with their Unisat wallet and then hit, I guess, migrate or transfer bridge, and it stays on Bitcoin. It gets put into the Tap protocol to where there's more functionality that they could do. Essentially, they're getting like a Bitcoin wrapped version of whatever their runes are. So, for example, if you'd be moving Dog over to TapX, you'd get something like, or Unitap, maybe you get something like UDog, which then you use in the Tap DEX, right? It gets heavy into kind of this like the DeFi principles, right? Where you have like XYZ prefixes on a token or XYZ suffixes, and right, your Bitcoin is now DLC, BTC, XYZ, DO. You're like, what the hell does this even mean? It's a wrapped version of a wrapped version of a bridged version. So I think this is just trying to take those DeFi things and keep it internally on Bitcoin. Again, this is something that Taproot Wizards' whole objective is build Cat VM to where you could do DeFi on Bitcoin, but in one collective ecosystem. Instead of having to do this bridge, Cat VM is basically just saying you just use our meta protocol essentially that leverages OPCat instead of OP Return or some of these other ones to do all of this kind of extended DeFi, degen nature stuff. So I don't know. I think this stuff, it's early. I mean, look at here on Moto Swap that I've pulled up. I think they're still on testnet. These guys are still marketing it as, you know, like the native DeFi kind of protocol. I've talked to these guys in person a lot. Pretty interesting guys. I have told them that their hostility to everybody else is definitely going to be the reason no one uses it. They still continue to do it. I told them this in person twice.
Wait, have I missed this? What do they do?
Well, you scared them away, right?
Oh, these were those guys. Okay.
Yeah, you scared them away, dude. What's up, Dogfather?
Yeah, maybe one remark. If people talk about DeFi on Bitcoin and that some projects are building stuff, I'm pretty surprised that few people talk about Liquidium. I mean, they have like DeFi for ordinals. They made 1,150 Bitcoin already in total loan volume. They're building on loans for Runes and BRC20 without any bridging, without any major trust assumptions. So I'm pretty yeah.
Yeah, I think we lost you again.
Lost you again, Ruggy McRuggins.
Ruggy McRuggins. I did it. So I pulled it up here. I pulled up Liquidium. They do have a point system. And they are definitely probably the leading DeFi product in the ordinal ecosystem. The issue I have personally is I personally just am not interested that much in loans. And I don't know if the Bitcoin community is either. I think that's one thing. Generally, loans are used for leverage in the ecosystem, right? I don't know if the liquidity in ordinals is large enough to push Liquidium to kind of the forefront, but they are definitely leading in terms of advancement. And Robin, I've talked with Robin, I've met him in person. He's a very smart guy, and he did this on Stacks before he did it on ordinals, so he's definitely has some experience. I just personally don't know if the community is interested in this yet. I don't think it's large enough.
Yep. I mean, look, the Ethereum ones, which are built out, pretty well, there's some competition between them. But average people, you and me, it's like, do I want to do it? We don't really do it, right? It's kind of whales are using these systems. Not to say there isn't a place. There's definitely a place for them. And these guys might already be the winner on Bitcoin. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's, this is something that there's definitely a need. And so you'd figure this would be something that, is there any other on Bitcoin that I've missed? Or they're
the only one in town right now. At least that's on like quote unquote layer one.
Yeah. So they have a real opportunity to kind of grab the entire market share. It's a good opportunity.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I know they're going to continue pushing. They got points. They have a low etched rune, so there's probably going to be some sort of cross pollination there. Just the liquidity may not be sufficient enough for it to be like a top product, but I think it will be at some point. It's a waiting game. And moving over to another Bitcoin product, Stamps has had some recent traction. SRC Pad is launching the first token soon through their launchpad, which is the SRC20 Labs, I believe. They also SRC Pad came out yesterday and said that they're going to build this into more than just a launchpad. So I'm interested to see what specifically that means. They haven't told us, any of the advisories, what they're specifically doing, but they seem pretty excited about it. That was kind of my curiosity with this one is when you have a launchpad at some point in time, there's not really a need for it. There's definitely a need for a launchpad in an ecosystem in the very early stages when you need like curation and credibility to back some of these projects. If not, you're just going to be aping into rugs consistently. And outside of this, there's also something called the SRC 101, which seems to be Unprunable News has put this up here. SRC 101, which is some sort of new, I think it's like a domain service. So SRC 101 is a proposed standard for Bitcoin name service leveraging the Bitcoin Stamp protocol. This initiative, jointly developed by the Bitname team and Stamp team, it aims to establish a comprehensive naming service across the Bitcoin Stamp platform, simultaneously mitigating risks associated with UTXO expenditure. And then they have just like a list of some of the things that are happening there.
How hilarious, bro. Perfect timing, bro. Perfect timing. It's so great, dude.
Mike actually commented on one of my Sailor ship posts and tagged the company behind this. I think it's called like Bitname or something like that. Right? Everyone's getting into the name. Every ecosystem gotta have a naming service. Some other updates for this. I recommend also following Unprunable News or Stamp News. Those are probably the two leading Twitter accounts. The Swamps. This was an IDO. So Swamps is a SRC20 DEX that launched on Naka Chain. Naka Chain is a Bitcoin L2. So Stamps has a DEX and kind of DeFi ecosystem on a Bitcoin L2. I don't know if the attention is really there or not, but they raised a $2.1 million IDO. The token is called GSWP. The SRC20's launch is going to be at a 2.94 FDV. So that's fully diluted value. So this means that if you, whatever the quoting price is, I don't know what the supply of this is, but if the entire supply was quoted at whatever the ICO sale is, that's what the FDV is. Because what we see a lot is these low float tokens, to the degree that it's getting so bad. I've seen some of these, like Eigenlayer, they're launching like 1% of the supply. You're just like, how is that? That seems like such a horrible thing to do, because it's just going to get continually dumped into. Bitcoin stamps mentioned by Ledger, and it looks like that is it for now. So some subtle news in the stamps ecosystem. We do love our stamps, but again, I think with this like correction or downturn, is probably good, because everyone's burnt out and you need infrastructure. Stamps has limited infrastructure. Runes is growing infrastructure, but they're the leader. We talked about Litecoin ordinals yesterday. There's just literally nothing there. They do have some room. There are runes now on there, but literally all you need is a builder. So a few builders.
Call them loons on Litecoin.
Loons. Loons for sure.
Dude.
What else? Like CBRC20 is still on testnet. You have Atomicals hasn't pushed out their VM that they've promised. So there's still a lot of promises and building activity, and you need the price to be flat or consolidate for builders to build. If not, you're just focused on people in your Discord.
I mean, look, man, this is actually, for blockchain in general, like this is an incredible amount of building. Like I've never seen anything like this. Like this is the most active building time I've ever seen. And I think, ordinals was the thing that kicked it off. And that's really amazing. It really is. There's going to be a massive consolidation, though. Obviously, most of this stuff is not going to survive. I mean, I think we see some things that are going to survive with communities that are strong enough that you can see them. You can tell right now that they're going to survive. But who knows, man? I'm still keeping my eyes peeled for the next thing. I don't think it's these cards, though, but a lot of people are pushing these cards over the last couple of days.
Oh, Fantasy Top?
Fantasy Top, yeah.
Yeah, I'm playing it. It's kind of like so SocialFi is popular. I mean, a lot of people are farming it for Blast, but I just wanted to kind of play. It's like Pokemon cards for influencers, I guess.
Do they when you sign up, do they give you your own card? They like create the art for your own card and stuff like that? How does it work?
So they call them heroes. You had to apply. There's 150 heroes to start, which are basically the influencers, and they're rated 1 through 150, and the scoring changes based off of your Twitter activity. So this team's purchased the API for Twitter analytics,
right,
and has it plugged in. So the amount of views and things. I'm already seeing people try to game the system.
People are already gaming it, and like I saw a post the other day where basically you or I would buy like the lowest influencer, right? And then buy a bot to pump up their tweets.
Yep. Yeah, this is how you get suspended. That's how you get account suspended.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's going to be some games. You're going to figure it out. It seems it's kind of fun. I mean, SocialFi is cool. It's definitely heavily weighted in the favor of the influencer. Like these people, right? Like Ansem and some of these people on Friendtech made, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on trading fees. And they're doing the exact same thing here, right? Because if you're trading that person's card, they get a percentage of the rake of the fee that's going towards it. But it seems pretty fun. I mean, also today, the Friendtech airdrop's supposed to happen today as well, right? So we're just covering our own little echo bubble. There's a much larger bubble on, Solana with meme coins and Ethereum with SocialFi and the Ethereum L2 ecosystems. It's impossible to keep up with it at this day. Then you still have like Monad and some of these other ones, like new forming ones. It's tough to keep up nowadays.
For sure, man. And to see which ones, where the real opportunity is. I mean, you hear stuff like, I know plenty of people on Warpcast. I'm just started getting on there and like, oh man, I made $20,000 last month, and all I had to do was shitpost. I'm like, bro, all right, I know I don't have time because I don't believe, like, I believe there are like 5 guys who did that, but to be that top guy, I don't know, man. It's just, what are you going to chase? It's really tough when there's literally almost infinite things to chase right now. It's, but for the entire crypto space, it's pretty exciting how much stuff's going on.
Yeah, it's the time now to back the winners over the next few months until the uptrend resumes. It's probably going to be a few months, if not longer. I could be wrong. We could just go up the next day off of some news, right? Everyone's excited about Sailor stuff, but a healthy building period would be good for the sake of the space. This cycle's probably an extended one, which seems to be lengthening a little bit. Less volatility on Bitcoin, more on some of these other chains. So spend the time wisely, everybody. Spend it wisely, and hopefully our Inscription ecosystems pick their ass back up and we see some exciting stuff, right? It's our show's now become something where we don't even need to have guests on because there's so much content to cover. You just can talk about whatever the new flavor of the day.
We didn't even get to Litecoin. Where was our Litecoin boy? Didn't even come up on stage, man. We were ready to dive into Litecoin, talk about how dead it is, and he's talking about how it's the future of finance. I guess we'll have to roll that back next week.
Once the ETFs are approved, maybe the
yeah, it's guaranteed, bro. It's guaranteed. That and Dogecoin, guaranteed ETFs, man.
Sailor's coming over to do DID on Litecoin because it's cheaper.
Crazy.
That would be crazy. Well, we'll wrap it up here. It was a fun another Inscription show. Again, every time we come into the show, I'm like, man, what do we talk about? And then it's literally I open it up and I'm like, man, there was a ton that happened this week, like a ton. So we're wrapping it up here. Appreciate everyone who joined us today. If you don't know, Adam, myself, and Chris, who work at Emblem Vault, the leading cross-chain NFT protocol. We're actually going to have a few announcements here, but hopefully in the next few weeks when we do our town hall. Wrapping up some finalization for some major news on our side, and then we could get back to business. Make sure that you follow everyone on stage, Dogfather, Snake, Major, everybody. It was a fun show. We will be back on Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, covering runes, Bitcoin ordinals, and probably whatever the hot flavor of the day is. Make sure that you guys stay safe, follow everyone, and we will see you on Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Until then, stay safe and happy hunting.